The president's son-in-law and senior advisor Jared Kushner says he has been fully transparent in his dealings with Russia. He spoke with the Senate Intelligence Committee today, as we've been reporting, and tomorrow the House gets its turn under oath. Let's bring in Jonathan Lemire, White House reporter for the Associated Press, and live with us in studio today. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Fully transparent. What's the view of the White House press corps on that matter?
Well, I think, first of all, it was striking how Jared Kushner delivered his statement today. This wasn't some messy gaggle at the Capitol. He was in front of the West Wing of the White House, behind a podium with the presidential seal on it. This was the full force of the White House behind him. Whether Kushner's statement is to be believed is up to the eye of the beholder. He is someone who consistently has said that there was no attempts to collude, that he didn't even realize what that meeting, that infamous meeting at Trump Tower, was about.
Okay, hang on. There's an email.
There is.
And at the top of that email, there's a subject line. Let's look at that subject line. Do we have that? Here it is. This is an email from Donald Trump Jr. sent on Wednesday, the 8th of June at noon or so. The subject line, Russia-Clinton-private and confidential. Meeting moved to 4 tomorrow at my office's Best Dodd. So what he's saying is he's read deep into the email, and we're to believe he didn't read the subject line.
That is the version he is saying. Frankly, Paul Manafort has made a similar case, that they're busy people. We certainly know this was a chaotic, unorthodox campaign that the president was running at the time. People were busy. People were coming in and out of meetings. They both say, Don Jr. just said, hey, I have this meeting. Can you come on in for a few minutes? And Jared Kushner, in the statement he revealed today, said he left the meeting after about 10 minutes because he thought it was worthless, and even emailed his assistant to say, hey, can you call my cell phone so I can get an excuse to get out of here?
Everybody's sort of pointing at Don Jr., it seems like, all of a sudden.
Well, I think you're hitting on something very interesting, that there may be a moment, and maybe it's sooner than later, where the legal fortunes of Don Jr. and Jared Kushner may be in conflict. It'll be very interesting to see how they reconcile that. They each have separate attorneys. The president, of course, has his own legal team, so there's not necessarily going to be a sort of coherent legal strategy.
But Don Jr. is not a White House employee. He's not where Jared Kushner is.
Correct. So the consequences for Jared Kushner in many ways are starker. He's the one who has filed all these forms, which he's had to update now several times because some of these meetings with Russians were, as he says, inadvertently omitted the first time around. We know that, for instance, the Democrats have been pretty consistently saying that his security clearance should be stripped. There are others who say that he should have to forfeit his White House job altogether.
The sort of tick-tock on the day so far, early morning, before 6 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, this 11-page statement came out from Jared Kushner. It was embargoed until 6 a.m. so that nobody could mention it, say, in your local 5 a.m. show or whatever. It was to start the 6 a.m. hours, and then, of course, for the Today Show and the Good Morning America and CBS This Morning and all those shows at 7 o'clock. And then we go through up until the time of the meeting. He hasn't yet done it, and his story is the story that's out there. This gives them top fold, gives them the top of the website, it gives them alerts as people are waking up in the morning, and he hasn't yet spoken, so there's no one to say, well, it was like this. Have we gotten any of the, well, it was like this from the staffers who were in this meeting today?
Not much to this point.
I haven't seen anything.
No, it was behind closed doors, a pretty small group. We know Jared Kushner he's going to be testifying in front of the House tomorrow, so he's only about halfway through this ordeal. There's some suggestion, I believe Senator Manchin said afterwards that he'd hoped he'd come back for an open hearing at some point.
Yeah.
So it's striking. I think the final sentence of Jared Kushner's release, the 11-page document he put out, was that he hopes this puts the matter behind him. I think that is unlikely, to say the least.
Yeah, that's not happening. What's your take on what's happening with Jeff Sessions? There was last week, then there was beleaguered. And is he trying to force him out? Is he just trying to get him in line? What's he doing?
We know the president, talking to people very close to him, has been seething at the Attorney General for months now, since Jeff Sessions recused himself from the Russia probe. This was not a coordinated White House strategy last week when the president went into that meeting, the interview with the New York Times. This was something...
Only Hope Hicks knew about it, as far as we can tell.
This was something that bubbled up within him, and that he just couldn't contain himself, and he went after the Attorney General. But, of course, that's not an isolated incident. We now have him today calling him beleaguered. The next step maybe is embattled. And, the issue is this the president just venting, or is this him trying to pressure Jeff Sessions to eventually feel like this is untenable? I can't do my job. I need to resign, which allows the president to get rid of him without actually having to fire him.
There was what looks like a trial balloon today. I don't know what it was, but there was this suggestion that maybe Rudy Giuliani would go in. Not only did Rudy Giuliani come in and knock that down on Fox Business, Rudy Giuliani also said Jeff Sessions did the right thing by recusing himself.